Hey guys, I am so psyched to let you know that yes, Amazon is delivering my bright pink inflatable octopus costume. Now, I won't be able to put it on today, hopefully tomorrow morning. I'm totally getting ready for the October 18th protest. Now, the only problem with my costume, my friends, is I ordered the child size, but it goes up to 5 feet and I'm only 5'4", and I'm thinking, maybe it will fit because the adult size is designed for people from 5'2" to like 6'5". So, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Okay. So let's actually talk about organizing. Today at 9:15, my guest is going to be labor lawyer David Radke. I cannot wait to have him on the show. David is an incredibly accomplished lawyer. He is currently the general counsel to the Utility Workers Union of America. Yes, the national union. He does this while maintaining a private practice representing other private and public sector unions in litigation, contract negotiations, and so on. Now, my friends, more than ever, we need to hear from the experts about the importance of organizing, not just to resist a tyrant, but also to maintain, or better yet, restore a better balance of power in this country. I don't know if you have seen the numbers that Robert Reich has been talking about, but the top 400 people in this country, the top 400 have more wealth than the bottom 50%. So, and the numbers are huge, right? It's like, as if I recall correctly, I think the top 400 individuals, the wealthiest individuals in the United States, have $6.6 trillion in wealth, right? This is a record. The numbers are really clear here. Robert Reich talks about it. So again, the 400 richest Americans only, are worth $6.6 trillion. And the entire bottom 50% worth just 4.2 trillion. That is a serious problem when just 400 individuals have more wealth than half of our nation. Now, even if you somehow believe that all of those people came to that money fair and square, even if you believe that, and even if you believe that this money is the fruits of either their labor or the hard labor and ingenuity of those in their family who came before them, that doesn't matter, even if you believe that, because this shows a system that is broken. I am someone who cares about markets, who wants us all to flourish, but there is no way with that kind of wealth inequality that we can actually have a functioning democracy, because the rules will keep getting skewed in the favor of the wealthiest. And I know you're probably wondering, Jen, who are these people? And you're probably hoping I'll show you not all 400 of them, but let me share this with you to give you a taste of why those at the very tippity top are clearly not just using their money to buy stuff for themselves or giving it away to charity to build museum wings or parks, things that help in the public interest. No. These folks are controlling our media, and they are also influencing our politics to help them concentrate more wealth and make the laws skewed against the rest of us. Now, let me show you, let me share my screen with you. This is from Forbes magazine. This is from this September. I think that you can see it. It's got a great graphic This is the 225 Forbes 400 list of wealthiest Americans, right? And they talked about how they ranked them. Okay, so by the way, just so you know, not every billionaire is on here, because having, it turns out, $1 million ain't nothing, right? You have to have several billion to be on here. I want to pull back so you can actually see this chart better. This is the Forbes 400 over the years, and you can see they started, it looks like, in 1983. And to be one of the, just to look, let's get into the 90s, because I'm going to talk to you about the 90s at some point. In the 1990s, if you look at the bottom of that screen, we're talking just $1 billion got you on, got you to the top of that list, right? In 1999, Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, right? He had 85 billion. That was 1999. That was the top of the heap. For those of you who are old enough to have been an adult in 1999, I want you to think, if you can remember, what your salary was in 1999, right? I'm thinking back on what mine was relative to what it is now, literally, like the numbers. Our wages have not grown in the same way. Now let's pop over. Let's pop over to today. The wealthiest, in 2018, before COVID, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, I know I shouldn't be buying shit on Amazon, but what am I going to do? The costume money is going to go to whoever sold the costumes. Okay, yell at me. I'm filled with contradictions. 2018, Jeff Bezos had $160 billion. He was at the lead. Now, obviously, I think you know, Elon Musk is now the wealthiest. He has more than $400 billion. If you look at, we'll look at his actual numbers in a moment, but look at this spike. We talked about COVID profiteers. This is unbelievable, right? The cutoff this year to even make it on the list was $3.8 billion. Okay, friends. Now I want to scroll down a little bit. I promise we're not just going to talk about money. We'll also be talking, my friends, about law and power. That's what we do. But let me just show you here. You saw that chart of the growth. Yikes! I'm sorry. I wanted to actually have the list. At the top of the list is Elon Musk. Okay, so let's look at the actual list here. I'm sharing this tab. These are the actual wealthiest people. Elon Musk has Elon Musk has $428 billion. Now, I know we said, well, what if some of these folks came to it honestly? Well, guess what? Elon Musk, whether or not you believe he came to the money honestly, he got huge US government subsidies to grow his business. Without that, he'd be broke as a joke. Not just subsidies, but he has government contracts. Then we get to Larry Ellison of Oracle. Now, Larry Ellison, $276 billion, is a huge Donald Trump supporter. And as you know, his son, who he handed money to, is now in control of CBS News. So let's look at these top two. Elon Musk controls Twitter. He actually was given a job without any kind of official Senate approval, essentially a cabinet position, Doge, and he was cutting the hell out of the U.S. Government, firing and having employees fired without any kind of due process. That was Elon Musk. He had that influence on Donald Trump and was able to get access to that position because of how much money he spent supporting Donald Trump's reelection in 2024. Larry Ellison. So we've got control of Twitter. We've got Larry Ellison's son. His money makes his son, who's also highly conservative, now an owner of CBS News. How about Mark Zuckerberg? He's got $250 billion. As you know, he controls Facebook. Then we've got our friend Jeff Bezos, originally of Amazon. And we know Amazon, in part, made its money through regulatory arbitrage, not paying taxes. But also, Amazon is, great innovation. That's not the problem. One of the problems is he also controls the Washington Post. So now we have social media with Twitter and Facebook on this list. We're just in the top 4 wealthiest people. And we've got print media, Washington Post, and we have CBS Broadcast News. Those are just the top 4. And if you add up those 4 people together, their wealth, I can just do the quick math. We're talking about over $1 trillion, just these 4 people. I'm going to drop this. I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'm going to drop this in the chat. Now, there are a lot of different solutions for this, and there are a lot of different explanations for how those folks got so much money. Today's show is not specific on that, but what I can tell you is we don't do this alone. We do this together. We need to be organized, nonviolent, and very clear about our objectives. And as far as I can tell, the most successful organizing efforts have been done by organized labor, public and private sector unions, who have largely are still around, but have been diminished through the concerted efforts of capital. I see David is here, and I'm going to bring him up soon. We've got a lot to talk about. I went off on the wealthy, but I've got some clips. So I'm going to have David join the show, and he's going to watch some of these clips with me in a moment. But I want him to be able to get his spiel out there. So before I bring him on, I want to talk to you a little bit more about how freaked out the Republicans are and the Trumpers are about the gigantic, enormous rally. We are going to have the second No Kings Day rally this Saturday, October 18th, nationwide, throughout the day, across the country, and even across the world. And I'm really excited about this because those who helped organize it before pegged the number of people at between 5 to 6 million who showed up before. As you know, our magic number is to get to 3.5% of the population, which is around 11 million people. It's not really a magic number. It's based on data science. This is Erica Chenoweth's research. Talked about it before. But if we can have a nonviolent protest that captures, that brings together over 3.5% of the population, the data suggests that within a year we can have regime change. I'm hoping sooner. Okay, so what I want to bring up is this guy, 2 clips. Again, this is where David comes up from. Tom and Emmer. He's a Republican member of Congress who's known as the House Majority Whip. His job is to whip up votes, which would be important if the House actually decided to be in session. They're avoiding coming back because they don't want to swear in a member of Congress who could then vote to release the Epstein files. Yes, they're a bunch of cowards. So let me share with you this clip, 2 clips from Tom Emmer, and I've got a comment, and then David will come up.
These guys are playing to the most radical, small, and violent base in the country. You'll see them on Saturday on the Mall. They just do not love this country, and these guys are afraid of them. Chuck Schumer et al. Are afraid of them.
Number 1, this is a nonviolent protest. Number 2, they won't just be on the Mall in Washington. Number 3, this is not small. This is the giant chunk of the base. And number 4, if Chuck Schumer is afraid of us, good. He should be. One more thing from Emmer.
To continue this shutdown for what? For a Hate America rally that's taking place on the Mall on Saturday, Maria? This is ridiculous. It's time that this, my grandfather's party, start listening to Main Street, start listening to the American people. They spoke very loudly a year ago.
So this is the thing. his grandfather's party. It made me start to think. This guy, he looks a little older than me. I don't know. Maybe he's lived a cleaner life. Maybe he's younger. I don't know. But his grandfather, like one of my grandfathers, when I think about it, was born in 1900. So his party, if he had been a Republican, I tried to think about what would that party look like? Like who were the Republicans of the 20s? Is that what we want? Let's take a peek. Oh, look, Calvin Coolidge. Is that what we're hoping for? Calvin Coolidge, remember, he drove up the stock market. And as a result, as soon as he left office, pretty much shortly after, it crashed. Are we going for Herbert Hoover? Let's look at him. Hoover. The market crashed while he was in office, and he helped usher in the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover, who's Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon, famous now for not doing a fucking thing to help us, saying we should just liquidate the banks, liquidate labor, liquidate everything. He wanted us all to get cut to the bone, which helped, of course, get FDR elected. But let's skip forward to Dwight Eisenhower, another one of my grandfathers or his grandfather's members of the Republican Party. Eisenhower was a military hero. Eisenhower was nothing at all like the current Republican Party. He was afraid of the military-industrial complex, okay? Also, there were major civil rights advancements during his administration, and he built up NASA, unlike the current administration, who has cut over 500 jobs from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory just this week. And finally, that was Eisenhower, sorry. And finally, we have Nixon. You go for it, Guy. If you want to say that Nixon is your role model, who's going to argue with you? So these people who hearken back to a Republican Party that they claim they want, really? Okay. And with that, let me introduce David Radke. David, as I mentioned to you, is currently the general counsel of the Utility Workers Union of America. And he is also a member of the AFL-CIO Lawyers Advisory Panel. When I tell you again that he's the general counsel of the Utility Workers Union, we're talking about the national union. David is a frequent speaker, not just to the public, but if you invite him over to a dinner party, he will not hesitate to comment, especially, my friends, especially about his adorable, adorable dog, Wally. Hey, David.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
I am good. What's up?
Not that much. I was listening in. I want just to talk about two things you were just talking about. I was at the first No Kings rally in Benzonia, Michigan, which is a pretty red county in northern Michigan this summer, and it was stunning how many people were there. There had to be
Where
three.
can you say the name of that county? What is it?
It's Benzie County, so it's a county in northwestern Lower Michigan. And
Okay, sort of near Chicago, like off of Lake Michigan.
no, closer to Traverse City. So,
Okay, I know where you mean.
so
Okay.
by Sleeping Bear Dunes.
Oh,
People
beautiful.
voted for Trump in 2024 and 2020. Voted for Governor Whitmer in 2022. But an incredible turnout there. Lots of support, lots of horn honking, lots of great signs. So if there's people are mad at President Trump in an area like that and are willing to come out and show it, it's obviously a universal. And then I heard you talking about the richest people in the world, and two of those people, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, not that many years ago, they were standing by the side of Barack Obama, and now they've become these kind of right wing um, guys who give tons of money and support to right wing causes. And I believe that one of the radicalizing reasons that they became right wing is union organizing drives at their at workplaces that they own. And
Nice. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. So you're saying both I mean, Elon Musk has so many companies, but places including Tesla, and of course, Bezos's Amazon's organizing. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yes. So, like a number of years ago, the UAW started an organizing drive at Tesla in California, and the NLRB accused Tesla of committing a number of unfair labor practices. And he was adamantly opposed to unionization, and he was able to fight it off, at least at that time. There was also some union organizing activities at SpaceX,
Okay.
which he also responded to with anti-union statements. And Amazon, it has been organized. There's been organizing drives. My son is involved in that, and has been organizing drives for a number of years at warehouses and among drivers. Jeff Bezos is vehemently anti-union and has taken an incredibly hard line against the union organizing efforts there. And again, you see him move him.
Can I stop you? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't understand. I mean, is this a philosophical view about union power? Do you think he's playing to his institutional shareholders? Because Bezos has enough money to die several times over and be reborn and have his brain, cryogenically frozen or whatever. But like, why does he hate unions so much, do you think?
Well, I think anti-union attitudes by employers is not always driven by the bottom line. In fact, many employers spend much more money on anti-union lawyers or anti-union consultants than they do on giving their workers a raise. It's about control of the workplace. When you have a unionized setting, then unions are involved and at the table as it relates to not only wages and benefits, but also working conditions. And without a union, all employees are at will, absent a contract, which doesn't really happen except at the executive level. Benefits are provided at the discretion of the employer, and the employer basically only has to follow the wage and hour laws, and if there's kind of state laws on breaks and stuff like that and overtime that are pretty weak. And when a union is involved and the workers sit down across the table, they're equals and they have a right to bargain about everything that relates to their wages, benefits, and working conditions under the law. And the employer has to meet with them and bargain in good faith, at least in theory. And so that is one reason why someone who has the ego of Elon Musk and the ego of Jeff Bezos would be opposed to unionization. I mean, it might be about wages, but both those guys are incredibly filthy rich, and paying warehouse workers a couple more dollars an hour is not going to make any difference in how big of a yacht or how many yachts they're going to have. So it's about
it's interesting, the control thing, because I think about that a lot. I mean, a lot of us exist in spaces that can be more hierarchical than they need to be. Like, I think about a classroom, right? It's not a democracy, even though I take a ton of feedback from students. I want a classroom where people are comfortable, where we share, where they can challenge me, it's more interesting. I mean, you've taught before and you know what that is, but it would be a different world I wouldn't mind if the students got to decide what was going to be on the exam. I personally wouldn't mind it. It might affect their ability to ultimately learn and pass the bar and all the rest of it. So, there is a give and take about those kinds of hierarchies, and there can be reasons for them. I personally, I get both sides of it, right? But ultimately, I understand why someone who's an egomaniac wants to make decisions more on the fly, not have anyone interfere. It's a lot easier to wake up in the morning and make decisions and not have to consult with anybody. Like, I don't know if you and Lisa consult about everything, but like if every single decision you made, you had to check with her, it would drive you crazy, and vice versa. And Michael and I are fairly independent. That's not what a union isn't taking over every decision Jeff Bezos would be making. It's just any decision, right? And this in like Germany, there are special boards where unions sit on the board of directors, right? I mean, why? There are other countries, and I use Germany as an example because it's always used as like in a major industrialized Western country that does very well financially, and they let unions, unions have power. I mean, can you speak to what's wrong in America that there's this? I mean, we know the mechanism, these billionaires control politics and they try to crush unions through legislation and so on, but can you speak to other countries and how we can get back on track?
Well, boy, back on track. But
Whatever you want, David.
well, I mean, no. So in Europe, in much of Europe, there's high union density. I mean, virtually every, and different countries have different methods. In Italy, you join the union that is affiliated with your political persuasion. So you might you might at Stellantis in Italy, you might be a member of the Communist Union, the Socialist Union, or the Christian Democratic
And
Union.
Stellantis is the new
Obviously,
name for
that's not the
Chrysler,
way.
right?
Yeah, right.
Stellantis is the
Yeah.
Chrysler. Okay, I hate the new name.
Yes.
Okay, so you're
So-
saying Italy, I get it. It's sort of like your soccer team and your political party.
Right, and in other countries, especially in Scandinavia and Germany, it's the bargaining is done sectorally, meaning that all the auto workers would bargain one wage package. And also, you have to remember in Europe, they don't worry about bargaining healthcare because it's socialized medicine. So much of when I'm in contract negotiations, much of the bargaining relates to what plan, what are the deductibles, what are the co-insurance, what's the out-of-pocket maximum. They don't have to deal with that. In addition, they have a much more robust pension system, a more robust social security system, so that they don't really bargain about that either. And obviously, that is a big negotiating a subject in the United States. So they bargain wages as it relates to an entire sector. There's some union a number of years ago, and I think it's still ongoing somewhat. There was fast food workers that were trying to organize, and one of the ideas was to have not McDonald's compete against Burger King or Wendy's
Right.
on wages, but have all the fast food workers make the same or a very similar wage in the Northeast, and then another wage maybe that's maybe a little less in another
So
place
this
where
is
the
so
cost of living.
smart. Let me cut you off for 1 second because I've got something related, two things related to what you're saying, which is there are some multi-employer pension plans. It makes sense to do this with some aspects of bargaining, but speaking specifically to healthcare, if we had Medicare for all, it would help private businesses, small businesses especially, and it would also, I think, help labor and management, like you're saying, focus on the aspects of the job that are sort of day to day and help the company and wages flourish instead of getting into the details of not just negotiating with management over these plans, but then they've got to go to the health insurance companies. So with this in mind, I want to share a clip with you from, I don't know if you saw this, Barack Obama was just interviewed. I think this is with the guy, the Between the Ferns guy. He's off camera here, but
it's Mark Maron, I think. I listened.
Oh, it was Mark Maron, not the Between the right. He was back with Mark Maron. Do you listen to his podcast? He's great.
Oh, yes, he
Okay.
did yesterday. Yesterday was his last one.
And let's watch.
Good. Yeah. We're not going to get to perfect. If you're telling me that the Affordable Care Act is going to insure 50 million people, do I think that's better than if we were starting from scratch and I could get a single payer plan instituted and get that through Congress and suddenly we had universal health care and we had taken the profit motive out of, do I think that would probably be a smarter way to do it? Absolutely.
Right.
But since I can't do that, I don't have the votes for that. How about this?
Yeah, we can make it better.
We can make it better. This sense that things aren't worth it unless we get everything we want is either a recipe for disappointment in a democracy, but also maybe in life, or it leads to this weird cynicism where you just withdraw entirely. And that's part of what happened to too many of our folks. We decided, all right, if I'm not going to get everything, that justifies doing nothing.
Thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good philosophy that You're not going to get everything. I don't get everything in my personal life or any place else. And as someone who's been involved with labor unions for over 30 years and has been in hundreds of collective bargaining sessions, you get what you can with the leverage that you can, and you try to make improvements over time so that you do better and your family does better. And you're not going to maybe get the end of some, you're not, maybe if there's a two-tier wage system, you're not going to end it immediately, but you might over time, or you might get better healthcare over time. And that's why, but you get to bargain about it, and you're sitting at the table having a discussion about methods for improving working conditions or benefits or wages with an employer. And sometimes you can make a point that they go, oh, that does make sense.
And I agree.
Agreement.
Can you back up to the philosophy about negotiation? Let's speak specifically to the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. We all thought it would be the first step. And hopefully we could eventually, I thought, maybe do what I used to call, and many did, Medicare for more, right? You start saying, okay, Medicare comes at this age. Let's just keep lowering the age, because you don't turn a whole ship around at once. That was my hope. What we're facing now, David, as you know, and in fact, the whole government shutdown is partially related to basically entirely throwing them off their insurance because they can't afford it, or cuts to Medicare, to Medicaid, et cetera. And it's making people really, really unhappy. Where do we go, from here? Does it make sense to you that the Democrats should just throw in the towel and listen to the Republicans and say, okay, let's let the funding of this year's budget go through, and then later you guys will come up with your health plan? Because Donald Trump has a health plan he's been thinking about for 2 weeks, David.
It's the concepts of a plan, I think, is the
concepts of a plan. What do we do with healthcare? Because there was that compromise. The ACA got through, and they keep chipping away at it, and now trying to cut the floor out from under it. Do we do the thing that just let it all collapse, like let the government shut down, let people see their letters from their health insurance companies, and then will they get mad enough to throw these guys out of office, or are we far too late and they're going to try to stop the elections with the National Guard? Where are we now with all this?
Well, I believe that the Democrats have to stand firm on this and do what they're doing. Otherwise, it's so cynical that you would just let people pay. And FOMO seems like a good idea, but it's real people who would be affected, who have health conditions, who have children who have health conditions. And if their premiums go up,
wait, you said FOMO? You mean FAFO?
FAFO. That's right.
You know the difference?
Yes,
FOMO
I do.
is fear of missing out.
It's FAFO. You're right. You're correct.
FAFO is F around and find out. But go ahead. It took me a moment.
Then you'd be missing out on your health care. But
yeah.
But I think that, and my understanding is these letters are already coming out.
Yes.
And so people are going to see it, and that should really build more momentum for a budget deal that brings these subsidies up to what they were, so that people aren't punched in the nose when they have to get their health care renewed, or to drop it, as you mentioned. And we've gone to a system where it's not perfect, but I think there's fewer people uninsured in the United States than there have been ever by percentage, and that's progress. And the increased subsidies that came through the COVID relief bills have caused people to say this is worth doing, and getting healthcare for me and my family through the ACA exchanges, and that's vital to continue. So I think that Democrats are playing this correctly. I know that there's a lot of pain that's happening, especially for federal employees and for some beneficiaries.
Right.
But it makes sense to draw a line in the sand and say we're not going to have 20 million people affected in a negative way, so that people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos can continue to get their tax breaks, but the people who need the healthcare subsidies miss out or lose out.
Are there places, setting aside SpaceX and Tesla and Amazon and so on, are there places where, in your experience, management and labor are or can work together as a force to get legislation change? I mean, you would think that management and labor could come together as a strong lobbying force to try to get, single payer or something. Like, am I dreaming that this could happen? Like,
I think that I've not seen the employers support single payer. I know that employers like multinational corporations understand and know that if they're competing with, say, a Canadian company or they have a Canadian subsidiary, that they're paying less for workers doing the same job because their healthcare is covered by universal healthcare and is not paid for by the employer. But I have not seen the Detroit automakers say, "Oh, we support what our workers get in Canada," or "We don't want to compete against Mercedes workers or BMW workers with this unfair playing field where we're paying for billions of dollars in healthcare every year, and Mercedes and other European automakers are not paying that." I just haven't seen that, and I don't know why that is, because it seems like it makes sense to me. Part of it might be just speculating, obviously, is that that executives would see maybe their income tax bills go up, and they're not as interested in that. But I don't know.
There are other, yeah.
Competing interests. I don't know why that is. Why big employers, especially those that understand the difference between the cost for an employee that has universal health care versus one that doesn't, when they know what it is, why they're not lobbying for less employer burden as it relates to healthcare. Because what I've been seeing is that healthcare is going to go up by a significant percentage next year, regardless of what happens with the budget, and that is going to obviously affect their bottom line, and it's going to affect workers' wages, and because there's a pot of money, and that money, if that more of that pot goes toward healthcare, then there's less money for other things. So that affects everybody.
So David, we are nearing the part of the show where I do this thing called Crazy Town, and I've decided to do a triple scoop of it. So I'm going to play a little music. Well, by the way, where is Wally?
Wally's at the house.
Oh, you're at work?
Yes, he doesn't come to the office. No, I don't have, I'm at work, yes.
Wally doesn't come to the office?
No.
Oh, I need to speak with Wally.
Distracting. He's too distracting.
He is, but does he have a union?
He does not have a union. He does have another dog, Teddy, that he could form a union with. We would
Okay, let me play a little music. Here we go. I do. Okay, it's really dumb. I'm glad you at least laughed. I didn't make you do the dance. Okay, so I've got. I'm going to show you first. The first clip is a little more dry. This was from over the weekend with Justice Barrett talking about this shadow docket situation. And you're probably well aware, but for those who listening don't know about this, the Supreme normally speaking, if the Supreme Court, is going to overturn decades or centuries of a precedent, they would actually hear oral argument, think about it, and write a decision. What they had been doing recently is deciding, someone will appeal up to them and overturning a lower court, basically overturning precedent and claiming, well, this is just temporary. We'll hear this case soon. Okay, I'm going to play you this Justice Barrett appearing on Fox News, which in and of itself is crazy.
A temporary decision on something, and there have been some really heated dissents from those who are on the losing end of some of those decisions. One of them, from Justice Sotomayor, joined by Justices Kagan and Jackson, said in the last 8 months, this court's appetite to circumvent the ordinary appellate process and weigh in on important issues has grown exponentially. Its interest in explaining itself, unfortunately, has not. So What about her criticism that there's not full transparency on that, whether you want to call it emergency docket, shadow docket, interim docket?
Yes, we can't decide what to call it. It seems it's a relatively new phenomenon that it's, or at least the amount of activity on it is relatively new. You know, these are cases that are preliminary, and so they are not cases in which the court has had full briefing and made a final judgment. And I talk in the book about the opinion writing process. It's deciding a merits case is a painstaking process. It's slow. It takes a lot of work. And when we write an opinion, it reflects our final judgment. On the interim docket, these preliminary decisions that we make, it's not just about the merits, whether a case is right or wrong. We can count for other factors as well. And if we wrote a long opinion, it might give the impression that we have finally resolved the issue. And in none of these cases have we finally resolved the issue.
She's on a book tour, David.
Yes, I don't believe her that they haven't.
Okay. Speak up. Say that again. Say that again. You don't believe her?
I don't believe that they issue these shadow docket decisions when they haven't come to a conclusion about what the final outcome is going to be. They just want it to happen sooner. The National Labor Relations Board, a agency that I deal with, is affected by one of these shadow docket opinions right now, which is the president fired a member of the NLRB in February of this year, Gwen Wilcox, a longtime union lawyer and is a board member whose appointment did not end until 2028. And under the statute, a board member can only be removed for cause. President Trump did not say that he had cause, other than he said she was woke. She's a black
right.
woman, so
this is that whole Humphrey's executor.
So she filed a lawsuit. She got a preliminary injunction from the district court
saying you get to keep your job.
She should be reinstated. She was actually reinstated for a period of time because they were following the Supreme Court precedent from the 30s that said that certain agencies, if it's in the statute, that those people that are appointed can only be removed for cause.
And by the way, we are lawyers, we know for cause. Can you explain what you mean by for cause as opposed to?
It means that you've done something, you've been convicted of a crime, you've taken money from one of the parties, you've engaged in some type of action, some type of wrongdoing where there is cause for your removal. Right.
And the Trump administration is arguing, no, the executive under Article 2 of the Constitution has the power to remove anyone it wants. And so far, the Supreme Court, you're saying, without any reason, so far the Supreme Court has done this shadow docket, reversing, this woman won saying she could keep her job, basically saying, no, she can't. Restore, and basically saying, even though there's been this precedent for like 100 years, right now she's out of luck, out of work. And there's only one area where the Supreme Court has claimed this old standard applies, and that's with the Fed.
That's correct. That's correct. And again, like why the Fed? It's the same type of language. They made it up, as they often do. This majority often does, and also again, I mean, to be cynical, but I think it's true. Is like they're worried about the economy crashing. They're not worried about whether there's a quorum at the NLRB. That does not concern them. But the entire National Labor Relations Act, a law that's been around since 1935, is being challenged constitutionally in a case involving SpaceX, and part of it has to do with the removal of board members, and we under the NLRA, there's administrative law judges who initially hear the case, and they also can only be removed for cause under the statute. And SpaceX and others have filed lawsuits seeking the enjoyment of the NLRA, and that's happened in the Fifth Circuit. And this is going to get to the Supreme Court, and as to the constitutionality of a law that's been in place since 1935, and was decided by the Supreme Court in 1937 that it was constitutional. And it's likely that the National Labor Relations Act will be found, at least parts of it, unconstitutional 90 years after its enactment.
The only good thing, David, is all these clowns and appointees from the Trump administration who have been there to dismantle the regulatory agencies if a Democrat ever comes into office, they can at least be fired and they won't be able to rely on the precedent. That's all I've got on that one. Okay, one more. Okay. I'm not doing a triple scoop. I'm going to do a double scoop. Here is our next Crazy Town link. This is CNN. This shows you the kids are all right, not just your kid. This guy, Adam Mockler, taking on Scott Jennings and this other crazy conservative, Carolyn Downey, on trying to point out something Donald Trump has done that no other president has done, and they try to bullshit, and Abby Phillip has no quarter for that. Here we go.
Are typically voting.
So Biden never weaponizes DOJ, and that's what you're saying. Biden never asked.
No, he absolutely did.
When did he ask Merrick Garland? When did he ask Merrick Garland to go after someone? Trump sent a DM to Pam Bondi. This is unprecedented.
The Merrick Garland who sent the parental rights memo that basically demonized
and Biden asked him to do that
when did Biden? Board meetings.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. When did Biden ask him to do that?
Garland collaborated with Biden to send that memo
ask him to do that?
Weaponizing the FBI and law enforcement.
Garland collaborated with Biden.
With the Biden administration, yes.
Okay.
That was their
Garland
policy.
Collaborated
it was
with
the
Biden.
administration's policy.
And I think that Adam's question, and it's a question I guess apparently this comes up on the show every other day, is where is the evidence that was directed by the White House? Where's the evidence that it was directed? And I'm going to broaden it, like not just the president, because you could argue that if you're going to compare apples to apples, the direction needs to come from the president, but from the White House. Where's the evidence of that?
Where's the evidence they disagreed with it? Is this not his administration's policy?
Disagreeing with it is not a crime.
That's a totally different.
Is it not his? Is it not his
policy?
Policy? Was it not his administration's policy?
Where's the evidence that?
Where is the evidence that he wasn't happy with his own administration's policy?
But hold on a second, Scott. I actually think that's a really important point, because whether it is agreement or disagreement, both of those things would be involving themselves in what's going on at DOJ in a way that most presidents don't, and that Donald Trump is. So whether or not they said do this or don't do that, both of those things would actually be off limits in a world in which DOJ.
Final thoughts, David?
The weaponization of the Department of Justice is terrifying.
We just had 2 indictments of the president's enemies. It's going to be not just two. It's going to keep going.
Absolutely. It's very scary. And people understand how scary it is.
That's right. That's why are you going to hit the streets again in that county and the west coast of Michigan, or are you going to be out there? I'm going to be in an octopus inflatable costume if it fits. It's coming in the mail today by Amazon. Yes, I contain multitudes. Is that the line about contradicting yourself that not Wordsworth? Oh my God. Michael, tell me, who said that, David? I contain multitudes. Walt Whitman. Someone said, do you contradict yourself? And he said, yes, in his poem, Song of Myself. And he says, yes, I do. I'm large. I contain multitudes. Anyway, what are you wearing? Go ahead.
That says, consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. I think that was
true.
Holmes. That's the one I use more often than that one. I will be in Ferndale, Michigan. I will be in Ferndale, Michigan between noon and 2 on Saturday.
Oh, I didn't know that, because there was something in Detroit at 3. Where's the Ferndale one?
Right at 9 Mile and Woodward.
Oh, cool. Maybe I'll do that instead. Okay, let's connect. If you can't find me, I will be wearing a pink inflatable octopus suit.
You'll be hard to find, but I'll search it out.
Well, you'll be surprised. I'm hoping there are a lot of us. Okay, David, thank you so much for joining me.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.